Pledge of allegiance, a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call will show we have 2 supervisors absent tonight. Before we approve the agenda, we have to make one change. The department head number 1, or department reports number 1 will be moved to next month. So with that, I'd look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second? Motion by Supervisor Gullickson, second by Supervisor Shipman. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have no members of the public wishing to be heard. I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move. Second.
Motion by Supervisor Mickelson, second by Supervisor Thornton. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Public hearing, West Central Wisconsin Community Development Block Grant.
Okay, we do have a PowerPoint as well. All right, so while they're putting that up, I'm Jessica Olsen-Bew. I'm Executive Director of the Chippewa County Housing Authority, and so I'm here today to talk to you about the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG Housing Program. All right, so the purpose of this public hearing is twofold. One, to report out on the progress of the current CDBG housing grant and gather input on the progress of that, as well as inform the public of the opportunity for the West Central region to apply again for CDBG housing funds and gather input on the perceived needs, housing needs in the region. So CDBG funds are federal dollars that come from HUD, or the Department of Housing and Urban Development. These dollars are passed through the state of Wisconsin through the Department of Administration. Funds are available for economic development, public facilities, and housing. So the purpose of this hearing is to discuss the CDBG housing program. With this CDBG housing program, eligible participants of the funding are folks who are low or moderate income, so at or below 80% of the county median income. The funds can be used for rehabilitation to owner-occupied units, as well as homebuyer assistance, and when disaster strikes, they can be used for emergency assistance. So the funds are available as deferred, zero interest deferred loans to, again, income eligible homeowners. They're mortgaged to the property, and so they can be used for accessibility improvements, for any necessary repairs to the home. So, you know, if folks are just looking to remodel a bit, maybe get a granite countertop, this might not be the program for them. But we do see a lot of septic replacements, issues with well and folks having no water, roofs. We see a lot of roofs that need to be repaired. And so newly, we do lead hazard remediation, and that's not new, but what is new is that the state has modified the rules so that any lead hazard remediation is now granted to the homeowner instead of provided as a loan. And so this really will help convince homeowners to repair these things and reduce lead hazards throughout households in the state of Wisconsin, in particular here in the West Central region. Funds can also be used for home buyer assistance. It's a dollar for dollar match, so up to 50% of the down payment cost, not to exceed 10% of the purchase price of the home. So again, this is a loan at zero interest deferred, and when I say deferred, it means until it's no longer occupied by the person who received the funds. So whether they moved out and turned it into a rental, well then it's due in full, or sold the home, things of that nature. With the home buyer assistance, home buyer education is required. It has to be a HUD-approved agency and course, and our staff at the Housing Authority are well-versed in what qualifies in terms of the HUD regulations. Often when we do home buyer assistance, what we're seeing is that folks who are low to moderate income, the homes that they can afford in the private market are often in need of some repairs as well. And so then we're able to provide the assistance and then enroll them for another loan to do any necessary repairs to that home. So when disaster strikes, emergency assistance funds are also available through the state, and they are now running that through the regional CDBG grants. And so currently, we're in the process, from the recent tornadoes, of gathering information on folks who were impacted by the damage in Wheaton. And so again, it's for low and moderate income homeowners. And so emergency assistance funds are grants to the homeowner, so not loans, but granted, and it's for only damage that's specific to the disaster event. In some cases, housing replacement is necessary, and then there are displacement and relocation costs associated with that, and CDBG funds can be used for those costs as well. So these funds are awarded now on a regional basis. So this change happened in 2012 when the state decided to run them through a region which must be comprised of at least 9 counties, and a lead county needs to be identified. And so the lead county then applies for the funds on behalf of the region. So prior to that, any municipality could apply for funds through the state of Wisconsin to receive CDBG funds, and as a result, there are about over 270 revolving loan funds for the CDBG housing program throughout the state of Wisconsin. So, but no longer is that the case. I mean, the funds are still there, but now the state only awards on a regional level. So Chippewa County is the lead county for a 10-county region, which I'll show you which counties are in that in a minute. So emergency assistance funds, again, those are available to a community when a disaster occurs. Municipalities used to apply for those funds directly, and now it's the state is running those through the regional grant. And so Chippewa County and Chippewa County Housing Authority would be involved then in gathering information on eligibility for disasters throughout the 10-county region. So as a result, we work closely with local and state emergency management, and again, these funds are granted to the homeowners for date-specific disaster-related damage to the homes or the dwelling unit. It's not, unfortunately, we see a lot of folks who want help with cleaning up branches or trees that have fallen down, outbuildings that have been destroyed, and those are not eligible uses of the CDBG housing funds. It's only for the owner-occupied dwelling units. The state is currently accepting applications, again, for the regional housing program. Again, the applicant must be a county and represent a service area comprised of at least 9 counties. There's an estimated $14 million available for the 2020 grant application, which would be dispersed through the 7 regions in the state of Wisconsin. The deadline for the application is December 20th of this year. Here's kind of a synopsis of the funds that have been awarded to Chippewa County on behalf of the West Central region. So again, beginning in 2012, there have been a couple of emergency assistance grants awarded as well. So the 2016 was for a disaster in Clark and Chippewa counties. The 2018 Housing Grant Award is the grant that we're currently operating under and processing owner-occupied applications and rehab projects. So $2.2 million in the current grant, and we'll go through the progress of that so far. The 2018 Emergency Assistance Grant of $1.7 million, you can see at the bottom there, that was for the tornado disaster that happened in Barron County. If you recall, the mobile home park had significant damage to many or most of the mobile homes in that park. So Chippewa County, again, is the lead for the West Central region. So the counties in our region are Barron, Buffalo, Chippewa, Clark, Dunn, Eau Claire, Pepin, Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix. You'll notice that it excludes the city of Eau Claire, and the reason for that is that Eau Claire is considered an entitlement community, and so they receive CDBG dollars directly from the federal government and not through the state of Wisconsin. Housing needs in our region. We continue to see needs for home repair and also for home buyer assistance for folks who are low to moderate income. We do see a need for rental housing in the region, but with the CDBG program, there are administrative requirements above and beyond for rental units, including an affordability period that can last up to 10 years, and so the administrative tasks involved with repairing rental units are too burdensome to do on a regional level, and so we focus on owner-occupied. Poverty rates tell us that many homeowners will have difficulty paying for the ongoing maintenance of their homes. As a result, many low and moderate income families put off necessary repairs, which in fact makes it worse and makes the repairs more expansive and expensive as a result. There's also a shortage of contractors in our region, and so the labor cost has gone up as well. We're seeing that projects, the average cost per project is increasing. So in some instances, residential homes really are in such disrepair that they actually need to be demolished, and then that we've historically brought in replacement housing in those cases. The state is now allowing what they call reconstruction, so rebuilding the home, and previously that wasn't allowed. It was, if it was so bad that it needed to be demolished, then it would be replacement housing, manufactured housing. We've seen that septic systems have become more expensive, and of course failed systems threaten the health and safety of residents. And it's difficult for counties to issue orders for septic replacement when the owner doesn't have the funds to comply with that. And so we do see a lot of folks coming through that need new septic systems. The current waiting list, at least as of about 2 weeks ago when I prepared this, we had 66 applicants on the waiting list. We do continue to receive applications on an ongoing basis, and we continue to process loans as well on an ongoing basis. So we're seeing that loans are averaging about $30,500 per loan. And so we know that to serve our current waiting list, we're going to need about $2 million to do that. Home buyer assistance, the median value of housing in the region is $156,000, just above that. I've included the range there, so Clark County is the lowest, and St. Croix County, it might not be a surprise, is the highest. And so low to moderate income households find it difficult to purchase housing that is affordable to them, and often when they find housing that they can afford, it is in need of repairs. So we can do the down payment assistance up to 50% of the down payment costs, and then we can also do home repairs as well once they own and occupy the property. All right, so I'd like to take this time to gather any input from any of you here today on housing needs that you see in the West Central region. If there are none, I'll move on. Okay. All right, so activities proposed in the new application, similarly to what we've been doing on the regional level since 2012. Owner-occupied rehab. Again, we always have a waiting list for these funds, and so we continue to see a need for that, a home buyer assistance, and newly, the state is allowing acquisition and rehab that can be sold to a low to moderate income home buyer. And so with this, we're looking at the potential to acquire properties, blighted properties or otherwise, that are just listed for sale and need some work, so that we can repair that, maybe remediate any lead hazards, and then resell the homes to a low to moderate income home buyer who then can come into a home that they can afford that doesn't need extensive repairs. So that's exciting to me. Okay, just a recap on the regional grants. And so the 2012 award, again, was the first time that the state awarded it on the regional level to Chippewa County on behalf of the West Central region. At that time, we received just under $4 million, completed 154 loans. 146 of those were owner-occupied rehab projects. The average loan at that time was $23,519, and 8 home buyer assistance projects with the average loan of $14,376. In 2014, the most recent grant, the West Central region received about $2.2 million. We completed 99 owner-occupied rehab projects. The average loan for that grant period was $30,500, similarly to what we're seeing in the current grant, and 2 home buyer assistance loans, the average loan being just under $13,000. The 2018 Housing Grant Award, this is the current grant that we're administering on behalf of Chippewa County. So we've received $2.2 million, just over, and have expended almost $700,000 since the beginning of the year. We do have until December 31st of 2020 to finish out the current grant that we're in. So far, we've completed 20 owner-occupied rehab projects, average loan $30,500, and 2 home buyer assistance loans with a smaller average this time of only $5,000. All right, so I would like to take this time to gather any input from you here about the proposed application and the progress on the current grant.
Supervisor Garish.
Now I see you have to be 80% of the county median household income, I'm guessing. So what is
right.
what is that amount?
Well, it varies county by county, and I should know for Chippewa County. I don't know offhand.
About 55,000 for median income for Chippewa County.
Thank you.
So what? So the average house is 156,000. So what price range of homes are these people able to afford, and are they able to find the homes that they need?
I would say 156 is on the high end, you know, because when folks apply to us, we also look at, well, how much of their income are they spending on housing? So we actually denied a request where the mortgage, including the interest and insurance on that, was exceeding 50% of their income. So we did not feel that this is sustainable for the person. So we really look at, you know, what are they looking to buy, and is the mortgage not only going to be affordable for them, but we look at the terms and conditions of the loan. You know, there are some mortgage brokers who charge a lot in closing costs, and so we really protect homeowners in that regard as well.
Thank you.
Supervisor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just have a question about the current grant and a future grant, if that's on the horizon here, with respect to the emergency funding, and when we talk about Elk Mound in that area. I see that we've expended $685,000 about of a $2.2 million grant. Will some of those funds be available to those folks that have been impacted by this, you know, by the recent storm, you know, the tornado? And is that going to be, is that something that we're going to be refunded for in the next grant, or how exactly does that work?
So the emergency assistance, thank you for your question. The emergency assistance grants are actually separate contracts. And so if we're able to identify eligible homeowners from the Elk Mound event, then funds would be awarded separately through the region. So the 2.2 is not including any emergency assistance funds.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, department reports, Cobbin Bridge update, Brian. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Fred Anderson. I'm the project manager for the Highway Department. I'm going to be giving an update on our Cobbin Bridge project. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is the work history for Cobbin, kind of a condition history of the bridge. We've had some interest, in the conditions of the bridges on either side of Cobbin. So I'm going to be going over the conditions of those. The recent calendar of events for the project, and cost estimate history, and the future funding strategies, how we're going to pay for it. And then the last one, kind of a comparison of, if we continue with the project, get the bridge built, what it's going to cost versus what if we abandon the project altogether. So work history here, not really a whole lot of stuff that I want to go into. It kind of goes back to the original erection on the Yellow River there. But in '95, we had some major rehab work done. That was supposed to be a 10-year fix, and what do we get, 22 years out of it? So that's pretty good. The bridge was closed on August 2nd, 2017. The condition of the bridge, so this goes back to 1990. These are all our ratings, every couple of years or every year, depending on condition of things. But in '95, when we had those major rehab project, you can see the inspections after '95. There in '97, everything kind of got a lot better with the bridge, and since then it's been a slow decline. So it's kind of where we are with the condition of the bridge. The major item that, for closure was the superstructure in serious condition. You can kind of see that at the top there. So upstream 6 miles of Cobbin is the State Highway 64 bridge in Cornell. It was constructed in 1971. It's got a sufficiency rating. That's what the state uses to, rate the condition of the bridge. This is 76.4, which is pretty good. The deck geometry meets current standards. It's 44 feet wide. It handles over 3,500 vehicles a day. The deck and the superstructure are satisfactory condition, and the substructure is in good condition. So then if you go downstream 5.4 miles, you get to the Highway Y Bridge in Jim Falls, constructed in '86. It's got a sufficiency rating of 89.8, which is very good. The deck geometry does meet current standards. It's 30 feet wide. It's over 1,100 vehicles per day with a lot of trucks. The deck rating is fair, and with this summer's deck repairs, it's likely to improve there. The substructure and superstructure rating is satisfactory. So both those bridges are in pretty good condition. Next, a recent calendar of events, going back to the bridge closure on August 2nd, 17. Was it 6 days later after we closed it? County Board adopted a resolution, authorizing us to proceed with the design and eventual construction at location alternative 3, which is the current site of the existing bridge. And then the next year, in May of 2018, we were approved for 80/20 state funding. And 3 months after that, there was another resolution passed at County Board, basically reaffirming the resolution that was done in a year prior. So basically saying we can move forward with final design and construction at the current location. And then 3 months after that, we signed the agreement with the state for 80/20 funding for construction, and a total project cost of $5.95 million. And then, last month we signed the final design contract with our design contract engineers, AECom, for about $426,000. So here's a cost estimate history of pretty much going back to our first public information meeting. I'm not going to go through every one in here. It's really hard to see just because there's a lot of detail in here. But basically, each line here is when we presented costs to the public, whether it be county board, public information meeting, or highway committee. So you can kind of see that, you know, we've got different alternatives in different years at the far right. So that first one would be 2014, alternative 3, it's at $3.5 million. That means alternative 3 is the existing location. 2014, those are the dollars that's the year that those dollars are estimated for. You know, you go down to the bottom and we're looking at 2021. So there's inflation. You know, these costs go up and down for a number of reasons. As engineering progresses, information evolves. You get other agencies getting involved in the design process. Now, this is all preliminary design, but as you work with other agencies like DNR, DOT, the Army Corps, they have different requirements. So things kind of move around a bit. And you'll also see that there's some other locational alternatives that we presented there that we ended up not moving forward with. So next is our funding strategies. So as you can see there, kind of in the middle, bonding number 2 in 2021 and 2022, there's $2 million for Cobbin. We've also got $200,000 in highway fund balance that's been budgeted for the start of the final design for the bridge. So now we get into the part where, what if you know, we wanted to see the cost comparison of continuing with the project versus abandoning the project. So this slide is the anticipated cost for continuing with the project as planned, building the bridge, removing the old one. So what we have here are the design services. So the top line, the $135,000, is the county's 20% share of preliminary design, which is currently ongoing. We're actually wrapping that up. And that also includes state oversight. The next line is the final design that we are just beginning with. That is 100% county. That $451,000 includes the engineering contract, plus the state oversight. And then you go down into bridge construction, which includes the removal. The county's 20% share construction is the $1.23 million. That's based on our state agreement. That's 20%. And then we have $15,000 in there for historical mitigation. We're currently in a environmental process where we have to basically mitigate the loss of the historic structure. So we've got some money budgeted for items for that. So add that up, we get about $1.83 million to finish the project. This next slide is if we abandon the project. So part of the local bridge program, the funding agreement that we've signed with the state, we are required to, if we were to withdraw or not complete the project, we are required to pay back the state and Fed all the money that they spent on the project. So so I'll go through this line by line. The top one is our share of the preliminary design that we've paid to date, just under $110,000. The next line is the 80% share of that design contract. That's what the state is paying, and if we don't finish the project, we're going to have to pay that back. And then the next line is payback of the state oversight. That's the state, their time managing the project. And then the next line is down to the bridge removal. So if for engineering construction of removing the old bridge, we've been using $1 million. That's our engineering estimate. That includes design, construction, oversight, contingencies, everything like that. So we're looking at to abandon the project and remove the old bridge. We're looking at $1.547 million. So the last slide here is just a comparison of the two. So the top line is the cost for a new bridge, and then abandoning the project. So we're looking at $283,000 additional, or that's what we're paying to get a brand new bridge and get the old bridge removed over the cost of just not getting a bridge. So that's kind of all I've got here. If there's any questions.
Are there potential additional costs, such as costs to the township? Would we be asked to reimburse anything that they've paid?
That the towns have paid?
Didn't the township have a grant too?
Not for this project.
No?
Do you know of anything, Brian? No.
One-third program that.
Oh, yeah, no, we didn't move forward with that.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hartman.
How much money have we physically spent so far? Do you have a number?
So what we've spent on, I'll go back to it here. So what we've spent to date on county forces and the state and our share of the design consultant is at that $109,000.
That's the county's total cost so far to date.
Yeah.
And all the other costs that we got are paid for by the state. We'll have to pay them back.
Yeah. Yep.
So 1.8 or 1.5. To me, that sounds like a pretty cheap bridge, $230-some thousand. And not only that, the bridge in Cornell is pushing 50 years old. What happens 20 years from now with that bridge?
Well, that's a state structure, so.
Well, you don't care about that one?
Well, we won't have to pay for it.
Okay.
So,
But it's just, it's a comment that 20 years from now, that bridge could be out too. And the one in Jim Falls does get a lot of heavy truck traffic.
yep.
I just think it's a no-brainer that you would not go ahead with the project. Thank you.
Supervisor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're having some feedback here. I'm trying to make sure we don't. Okay, so back to slide 10. If we could take a look at that real quick on the anticipated total cost for Cobbin Bridge project. That bridge construction, when it says includes removal, do you happen to have a breakdown of how that 1.2 million breaks out? I mean, what % of that, or what the amount is for the removal versus the actual construction?
I don't have it with me. I mean, I can get that information. Yeah.
That would be very helpful if we could
Yeah.
get that, because I think that if you look at that cost, I mean, it'd be interesting to see that if, with the construction, that all of a sudden, the removal is, less than $1 million. Somehow we get a discount. I'm not sure. It'd be good to see what that breaks down as. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Supervisor Garish.
So what's the total cost? Because I'm looking at the packet here, and I'm going to the cost estimate history, and I would go to 8/14/2018. You've got 2021 build, construction is number 3, 5.682, and then there's a number below it in my packet that's cut off.
Yeah, so that bottom one to the right, the 2021 alternative number 3 construction, we estimated 5.682 million, and then plus
the final
final
design.
design.
So you're at 6.22 or whatever it is, I can't quite read it, but then you signed an agreement with the state for under 6, so who's on the hook for that
So
extra
that,
100,000?
so what that state agreement is construction only. So the state agreement, that 5.95 is comparable to the 5.682. So we estimated 5.6. When we went to the state, they have set percentages based on construction estimates that they want us to use for design and oversight and things like that. So our state agreement, they've given us 80-20 funding based on a $5.9 million project.
Prices end up being higher, 6.5. Well,
Anything
who's on the-
over,
who's on the hook for the-
we are capped at that 1.23 million.
Okay.
Now, the state does have a process for requesting additional funds, you know, and if it went over, we would go through that and request it. Not guaranteed it, but, you know, so that's what we've done on other projects,
Okay.
you know.
Thank you.
Yep.
Supervisor Thornton.
Have we built any contingencies in here, Bill?
Well, yeah, with our bonding and funding, you know, there's a little bit of a buffer in there, for things like that.
What is it?
So,
What,
so we're saying 1.83 to complete the project. We've got about 2.2, 2.2 million, budgeted there. Bid prices go up, you know, I don't know.
well, we're
stuff like
looking
that.
at a 5.9 cost of construction, and the state's locked you in at 4.7, and it's my understanding that you're gonna have a difficult time trying to get any more money from the state. This thing has considerable, every time we talk about the Cobbin Bridge, the price is up. When we moved the Cobbin Bridge back to its original placing 4 years ago, we were at a 5.2 total project. We're now, if you add in the other costs, the total cost of this project is 6.9. So if you're what, 6 months away from bids, letting the bids? Where are you from letting the bids?
Oh, that'll be winter of 2020, 21.
So we're a year away from letting the bids. I'm curious as to what this is going to do between now and then, and what contingency, if you're estimating a 10% contingency on a $6 million bridge, that's another $600,000. What we're going to be on the hook for, because it's my understanding the state of Wisconsin has made it very plain to us that you're going to get $4.7 million, and that's it. That's the understanding I get from highway committee meetings. And I asked for all of this, not because I might want to change my vote. I voted for the Cobbin Bridge the first time. But we're having this discussion, and particularly at the highway committee level, about funding. We saw this presentation from the highway commissioner the last couple of months about we need millions of dollars in additional funds for bridges that are falling apart, for trying to get our road construction down to a reasonable turnaround number. Is it time for us to have another discussion about, do we need the Common Bridge? It's been closed since 2017. Emergency services have not been able to use it for at least 5 years because of the weight ratings on it. Your school district has already made, those school districts have already made the necessary changes that they needed to make to adopt or amend their bus routes so they can pick up the kids on either side of whatever. Emergency services have also done the same thing. Are we getting to a point, I'm only making the comment, are we getting to a point where maybe it's not feasible for us to continue with this bridge? I just thought the board should listen to where we're at today, because we have gone from 5.2, and these are your numbers, not mine, to 6.9. And if we're at, or 5.9 total construction, depends on where you add, when you add in the design costs, okay? I'm assuming that 5.2 4 years ago was the total cost of this bridge. Making that assumption, it's 6.9 today. What's it gonna be in the fall of 2021 when you let the bids? And when you figure in a minimum of a 10% contingency, we're gonna be on the hook for it. Just wanted the board to know. Thank you.
Supervisor Bergeron.
On this topic, I just think that it's a great topic because I agree the presentation we saw at the full board about the money that the highway department is going to need in the future to sustain the transportation system that we have is a very big number. I think the piece that I want to get lost is no one really knows what those construction costs are going to be, and even though we've approved a resolution to move forward, we still will need to vote again on bonding, and that's a 2/3 vote, so that's a heavy lift. So I think having the conversation right now might be a little early because we just don't know what we don't know. We're speculating, and the board will have to come down and make that hard decision of do we bond to make this happen? And at that time, we will have a hard, concrete number of what that will be, and the board will have to make a decision at that point. And then the other kind of piece that I don't want to get lost on this is I agree that the emergency services and the school district and the residents have figured out how to make it work in that general community, even setting aside the concept of what's going to happen to the Cornell Bridge and the Jim Falls Bridge down the road and not having a reasonable second access. But just because they got used to it does not necessarily mean it's the best. I've had an opportunity back when this was before the board the last time to talk to the superintendent in Cornell, and they said that they would save thousands every year with more efficient bus routes, and it would really help the system in general because they obviously have to send a bus down both sides of the river for what is not a huge population on each side of the river. And then emergency services, yes, they figured out how to make it work, but does that mean we shouldn't? Is it worth looking at making it better? The idea that they're used to it, I get it, but I mean, this is hyperbole, but the residents of Chippewa County got used to paying a wheel tax, but we're getting rid of that at the end of this year because it's the right thing to do. In my opinion, based on the sunk costs we'll have with getting rid of this bridge, as it stands right now with the estimates we have in front of us, replacing Cobbin is the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think for me, in order to make the right decision on whether or not to support it is that we need some quantitative information and some data that shows what the impact is. I mean, I understand the convenience factor. I understand, I hear thousands, but then I don't actually see the hard facts. So if there is any way for us to get that information before we actually have to take any action on it, are we taking any action on this tonight? Mr. Chair, no? Okay. So that's just the thing, is that if we had some facts to support this, and I think that this presentation was fantastic. Thank you very much for putting it together. But I think, again, there's some impact to the community that maybe can be measurable. And if we had that measurable information in front of us when it's time to make that decision, I think that would help me personally to decide whether to support this or not. So thank you.
Supervisor Gullickson.
Yes, as my button will not work again tonight. I think we are having the conversation at the right time to weigh the factors, because with taking the bridge structures out, those costs are going to change proportionally to building it. And we need to take a look at that with the environmental issues that come with taking a bridge out. And just need to look back when the Chippewa City Bridge was taken out and the issues that arise out of there as far as pilings having to be removed, Department of Natural Resources regulations, and because Chippewa River is connected to the Mississippi River, it is considered it also within the federal system. So there's going to be costs both sides. I originally had voted against it, but I also think here's the key. We have to make a decision what we're going to do and then follow through. We can't take one step forward, then 2 steps back, and then 1 step forward, and then another 2 steps back, and keep going back and forth. So I think it is appropriate because our staff needs to have direction to be able to plan this and put the puzzles pieces together so that we can accurately do it. A feasibility study of our bridges on the Chippewa River, I don't think we've seen anything, but when we look at catastrophic events and the bridges we have there, you know, where does this lie, you know? As far as bridges, the bridge in Holcomb is the one that I cross quite often that I always wonder, that could be a real impact if that bridge needs repair. So the bottom line is I think we need to take a look at the entire structure, the whole system of bridges on the Chippewa, and then we make a decision and let's stick to the decision. But let's make it based on the facts. And I do believe this is the proper time. It's not fair for our staff to be going back and forth, back and forth. Keep it, tear it out, keep it, tear it out. Thank you.
One quick question. Does the old bridge have to be taken down?
Well, it's a safety risk.
It could stand for the next 50 years.
It could. It could.
Is there anything legal that says it has to be taken down?
Not that I know of.
If we didn't take it down, but then 20 years from now it fell down, at that point we would have to clean it up, correct?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that could cost us significantly more than it would cost today to remove that.
Yeah, maybe. It's already down.
I could answer part of that question, is that at some point in time, the Department of Natural Resources is going to look at the condition, and it's going to be based off the hazard rating that that structure has. And if it has a significant hazard rating, they may tell us to take it out. We may not have the pleasure of waiting for it to fall into the river. We may be told that it is a navigation hazard and it has to be removed.
All right, thanks, Fred.
I've been over it many times.
Business items, Resolution 43-19.
Resolution 43-19. Resolution authorizing submission of the application for Community Development Block Grant Funds on behalf of the West Central Wisconsin Housing Region. Now therefore be it resolved that the County Board of Chippewa County does hereby approve and authorize the preparation and filing of an application for CDBG funds for the above projects, and be it further resolved that the County Board Chair is hereby authorized to sign all necessary documents on behalf of Chippewa County as the lead county for the West Central Wisconsin Housing Region, and be it further resolved that authority is hereby granted to Program Administrator Jessica Olson-Bew and the Chippewa County Housing Authority to take the necessary steps to prepare and file the appropriate application for funds under this program in accordance with this resolution, forwarded to the County Board by the Executive Committee.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Garrish, second by Supervisor Shipman.
Yeah, I can talk briefly. This resolution, it's the 4th time it's been in front of the board, and it's just technicality so we can receive the funds.
Any other questions? Let's vote.
Try to vote.
Release. 13 yes, 0 no. Resolution 44-19.
Resolution number 44-19, resolution to adopt the Chippewa County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors does hereby adopt the attached Chippewa County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan pursuant to section 59.69 paren 1 Wisconsin statutes, forwarded to the County Board by the Highway Committee.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Hall, second by Supervisor Mickelson.
you want me to say anything about it?
Sure.
Okay.
Anybody got questions?
Basically, we did this plan with regional planning, a tri-county plan done Chippewa and Eau Claire counties. We started as a group together with them, and then we split off into our own counties and did our own public outreach. And I chaired the Chippewa County Committee. Supervisor Hall was involved in that as well, and came up with some recommendations where if there's future projects down the road, we could look at ways to cost effectively do bike and pedestrian accommodations without doing a huge trail project. And so that's something we'll look at as these projects come along. We have a map that shows the recommendations where we can make the most impacts, and then we're also going to use this as a tool. We're going to request funding through the same program that this study was funded. We're going to be applying deadlines January for pedestrian accommodations out at the New Stilson Elementary at J and 50th, where we'll be putting in a roundabout there in a couple of years. We want to widen out the bike lanes and widen out the bridge on 50th as well. So that'll be an application we submit for the same program. By having this approved tonight, that'll help us further that application too.
Questions? Nothing? Release? 12 yes, 1 no. Resolution 45-19.
Resolution number 45-19, resolution to approve the Chippewa County tax levy to be collected in 2019 for the 2020 budget, read by title only.
Motion approved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Thornton, second by Supervisor, was it Hunt or Ives? Supervisor Hunt.
So this resolution obviously is to approve $19,543,812 for levy for the budget that was approved on last Thursday.
Comments, questions? Let's vote. Release? 11 yes, 2 no. Ordinance 11-19.
Ordinance 11-19, ordinance to create the Criminal Justice Services Division within the Department of Administration and a Criminal Justice Services Division Director, second reading.
To approve. Second.
Motion by Supervisor Ives, second by Supervisor Hunt.
I talked quite a bit about this during the first reading, so unless there's any questions.
Let's vote.
Oh, wait. Stop.
Ready?
No, someone's touching theirs. Wait.
Okay, yeah. Release? 13 yes, 0 no. Ordinance 12-19.
Ordinance number 12-19, ordinance to amend section 2-353 of the Chippewa County Code of Ordinances to abolish the tax deeded land retention and sale committee and to designate the planning and zoning committee as the committee responsible for retention and sale of tax deeded land. First reading.
I can talk on this. This committee was, my understanding of the history of this committee was put together for that purpose. Since then, there's been a lot of policies and procedures put into place that there's not quite the misunderstanding of who decides who gets the property, where the money goes. Everybody on the committee felt like this was hashed out. And Doug, who has to run that committee, also obviously does the agenda for planning and zoning and felt it could be taken care of there. I'm in complete support of that. It sounds like a no-brainer to me, so that's the idea behind it. Any questions?
All right. Revisions to the HR policy manual for PTO and personal time. Second reading.
So we talked quite a bit about this. If there's any questions, Tony's here to answer them if you need to.
Motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Shipman, second by Supervisor Gullickson. Any questions, comments? Let's vote. Elise? 13 yes, 0 no. Information Technology Policy Manual, first reading.
Yeah, we have not talked about this, and I'll hand it over to Andy.
Good evening. So tonight before you, you have the Information Technology Policy Manual. Just a little bit of history on this. Back in December of 2015, we went through at the county a HIPAA risk assessment. It was one of those things that was to help reduce our risk for liability if there were ever breaches or things like that. As part of that, there were recommendations on things that we needed to do going forward, different policies that needed some minor tweaks, some that needed a little bit more wording, things like that. Some of our policies didn't have signatures and revision dates on it. So as an internal group, we started working on this process. Worked on it for about a year and a half almost, and it was just one of those things that we didn't have the knowledge in-house, the expertise that made it efficient for us to come up with the policies and feel that we had a solid product in front of us. So back then it was approved that we would work with a consultant to go through all these policies and come up with all the appropriate policies that we needed to be in compliance. So in June of 2017, we began working with Holly. The name of the organization, I can't think of right now, but she was the original one that did the risk assessment with us back in 2015. And so she started going through the process with us of looking at every policy, updating the wording, getting the templates put together. And that's how we got to these 3 policies that you have in front of you today, or they're all part of the manual. This is part of a much larger project with many more policies that we're going through and adjusting. So just wanted to go through these with you. If you guys have any questions about them, please let me know. The first policy that you have, or the first chapter of this manual, deals with things like supervisors taking steps to make sure the workforce members are compliant with the regulations. Reporting noncompliance is covered in this. It talks about investigations and sanctions, facility access controls. If you have an employee that finds somebody in an unauthorized person in a restricted area, how you approach those people and escort them out of those areas. It talks about keys and ID badges. It talks about vendors and contractors and sharing of PHI with them. And it also talks about the disposal of that confidential information. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of that first chapter. Is there any questions on that to start with? The second one then that we're going to talk about is kind of more the end user policy portion that they deal with on the day-to-day, things like not sharing passwords, not writing them down and keeping them in secure locations, and how the users are responsible for anything that is accessed with their usernames and passwords. So it's very important that they keep them secure. It talks about the software and hardware and how the IT department or division is responsible for the procurement of that, installation and maintenance of those pieces. It talks about internet access and things that you should do and shouldn't do when accessing the internet. It talks about email access and how we have retention and open records requests and things like that that we deal with. It talks about remote access. It talks about prohibitive use, and it also talks about our data backups. So really the nuts and bolts of the things that the users would probably be more involved with on a day-to-day basis. I know I'm just giving a really high overview of this. I mean, that's about 27 pages I think we had when we started with this, so it's a lot of information, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. All right, so the next policy, or last chapter of this policy manual is probably the most change that we're going to be seeing. It's dealing with the mobile device management. So up until this point, we have not had county-issued smartphones. We didn't have real good policies on personal smartphones and, getting email on them. We had some procedures in place, but this is more clearly defining those so that there's good set rules. And one of the things from the personal side of mobile devices is that if an employee had their county email on their device today and they left, it was not something that we had an easy method to take and remove just that portion off of their device. We could do a complete wipe of their device, which is something that you never want to do to somebody's personal device unless absolutely necessary, or you'd have to have them bring the device to you and go through the process that way. So it could be an uncomfortable situation if it was somebody that was leaving unexpectedly. So kind of just the nuts and bolts of this one is that this defines out county-issued mobile devices and that they're for business use only. Talks about how the county would be responsible for issuing system IDs, and our plan would be, like the county iPads would be Apple devices, just so it simplifies the management work that the IT division has to do. It's one system that we need to learn versus multiple different platforms for operating systems. It talks about similar things that we have with our computers today, that users are not allowed to download unauthorized software. If there's software that's needed, they would work with the IT division to get that software purchased and deployed out to the devices. And that it's to be used only within the United States so that there's not the additional costs for data plans for when you're outside of the U.S. So. Then it goes to talk about the personal devices. It talks about how you can have one mobile device, if authorized, set up with mobile device management, and basically allows the user to get county email on their phone. It talks about that the personal devices can't be connected to the internal county network for security purposes. They can connect to the guest Wi-Fi network, which keeps them segregated for security. It also talks about how client information is not able to be stored on these devices. Again, a big HIPAA thing that you don't want to mix those sensitive pieces of information together. Talks about jailbroken phones wouldn't be allowed, so basically it'd have to be a supported device. You can't override certain security mechanisms or things that the manufacturer puts in place. Again, just a big security thing so we don't open up holes for exposure. Talks about how county email can be sent through the system, that the user is responsible for obtaining their own hardware support and services of the device and any repair that they'd have to their personal device, so that's something that the county would not be responsible for. And that talks about keeping data confidential, if a device is lost or stolen or broken, and also the topic of if a person is trading in or selling their device, that they let the IT division know so we can pull the mobile device management pieces off of that device before it's disposed of or sold or traded in. So that's the biggest changes are the mobile device policy that we just talked about here. Any questions on that? All right, thank you.
Thanks. Supervisor Bergeron, would you do the honors, please?
Make a motion, the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors will convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, parent 1, parent G, Wisconsin statute, to confer with legal counsel concerning strategy to be adopted by Chippewa County with respect to litigation in which Chippewa County is involved for the purpose of discussion and possible action related to the pending opioid litigation. The board will reconvene into open session to continue with agenda after.
Second. Supervisor Garish. All right, we need to vote. We need to vote. Supervisor Hartman?
I'm sorry.
Supervisor Shipman?
This thing is voodoo.
Release. 13 yes, 0 no. We're not quite in closed session yet.
You getting us back online?
Sorry.
It says recording, so we'll go with that. I just wanted to remind everyone that starting December 1st, you can collect signatures if you will be running for your county board seat in April. If you are not going to be running, the non-candidacy forms would be due by December 27th at 5 p.m. And then your signatures would be due January 7th by 5 p.m. And we do have the packets available now in our office. And I would highly urge, if you are not running, to please file the non-candidacy forms by December 27th.
And I just have one thing. I look forward to seeing all of you here Thursday night for our final strategic plan meeting.
Our final one, right?
Our final one. Promised. Or Randy is in deep trouble.
Joseph.
Agenda items for future consideration. Motion to approve, or motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We're adjourned. Thank you.